Hello, welcome back to Invent Academy. Today we will be covering programming logic. On our agenda, we are going to cover what is programming, what are common programming languages, what are some basic components of programming, which includes variables, conditional statements, and loops, and at the end we will do a demonstration of block coding. First, a little bit about me. So I'm Jennifer, and I am from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I attend the University of Michigan, where I will be a sophomore studying computer science. Outside of computer science, I enjoy music. I play the piano. I also like cooking and exercising. My affiliation with UTK is that I am a 2020 summer instructor. So, what is computer programming? I like to think of computer programming like a recipe. Just as when you're making cookies, you have a set of instructions to follow, computers need direction too to complete certain functions. And these pieces of instructions are known as code. So this would be like the step in your recipe that says, mix your flour and sugar. The computer needs these lines in order to move through different steps to complete a task. And the sequence of these instructions form what is known as an algorithm. And these algorithms dictate what a computer will complete or what function it will do. So whenever you click on an undo button on your computer, that would go through an algorithm in order for it to actually go back to a previous page. And just as different countries speak different languages, different programs on your computer may use different languages. And each of these languages has a different set of design rules. And these word symbols and grammatical rules are known as syntax. What are some of these common programming languages then, you might ask? So Java is actually the most commonly used programming language, and it's used in many Android applications, so any app on a smartphone that is produced by Android, and it's also used in financial services. So financial companies will use Java in order to sort the data they have in their database in order to predict how well the company might do in a future year. We also have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and these are used in web browsers. Any website you go to will incorporate some of these elements. On the next slide, we have an example of this. And so if you go to the UTK website and then you right-click and you choose the Inspect button, you will have a page similar to this pop up. And now on this left side is going to be your HTML program. And so you can see all these different headers which show the divisions in the page. So div stands for division. And then we have these series where we have the text. As you can see, I have highlighted here the exact words that you would see on your page. And so you can see that this is a lot of different information that the computer needs, but you can see exactly what you see in your code. On this right side, you have the CSS programming language material. Now, CSS is known for styling. And you may ask, what styling aspects will CSS control? And it will control anything from what font style you want. So you may have heard the terms Times New Roman or Arial. So you can pick what that will be. Also, you see here, you have margins or space around the text, and that can be controlled in here. It can determine the size of your font. So CSS is really just choosing all those pieces which make your website look good. Another programming language that is common is C++, and that is used mainly in game development, and we also have Python, which is known for its simple syntax, and it's often used in web development and data analysis. Now we are going to get into some basic components of programming. One of these are variables. And variables are a way to store information that will be used in a program. I like to think of variables like a container. And just as you may have a cookie jar for cookies or a shoebox for shoes, our program has different types of variables that store different values. When you declare a variable in code, you always will say the type of variable, then the name of the variable, and then you will set that equal to a value. One of these types of variables is an int. And an int is all your integers, so all your numbers that are whole numbers, so 1, 4, 6, -2. And this is an example of how you would declare that variable. We also have doubles, which include all your real numbers, which means it'll include all the decimals in between your whole numbers as well as those whole numbers. We also have strings, which I like to think of it as a string, and then there are these little beads which stand for the characters or the letters of your word, and those are all strung together, and that is what makes up a string. So we have your words, so hello, chocolate. So each one of these characters or letters has a value, and then it's strung together to produce a word. We also have other types of variables, such as bool, which are your true or false values, a char, which are your characters, which I mentioned before are letters, and we also have unsigned in, unsigned long, and many more types of variables that determine the range of numbers it can hold. Another component are conditional elements. Now, in the real world, there are conditions. So say you don't do any homework for a class, you probably won't pass it. And so a condition for a class might be that you complete a certain number of homework assignments in order to get a certain grade. So it can follow an if-then statement. And that can go, if you don't complete your homework, then you might not pass the class. And down here, we have a piece of code written in C++. Don't worry if this seems a little advanced, I will walk you through it right now. So bool, as I mentioned before, are true or false values. So we have that, and this is known as our return type of the function, because as you see down here, it returns this value of true or return false. Now what we mean by return is we're basically giving it back. So this would be if your teacher gave you a piece of paper and said, complete this homework assignment, you're going to fill it out and then hand it back to her. So that's all a return type is what we're giving to a function and then what it's giving us back. Now you may ask, where do we give it that piece of paper? And that goes right here. And this is our parameter section. And so we are passing in the number of homeworks we complete. And that is going to be an int variable or a number variable. Here we have the name of our function, which is passed class. And so we passed our class, then we can say, did I pass the class? And then we give it a number, and then we come down here. So this is where we get into the conditional statements. So if the number of homeworks is greater than 0, then we're going to say, yes, you passed the class. True, you did pass the class. But then else, so a second condition we might have is if you got less than 0, which I don't know how that's possible, so it's more likely you got 0 homeworks done. So then you would say return false. So you did not pass that class. Another component we have are loops. So say we want something to occur more than once. We would use a loop in order to do that. And in C++ and many languages, 2 common types of loops are while loops and for loops. And so a while loop will be formatted in this way, while a for loop will be formatted in this way. Now, each loop has very similar components, and so it's often just a preference which style you may use. It always initializes a value. So here we are saying the number of cookies is 0. Then we have a condition, and so down here you see we initialize the value, and then we have the same condition here. And so we're saying as long as the number of cookies is less than 5, then we have what we will do. So it's typically incrementing or increasing a value of this variable we declared here. And so we are incrementing the number of cookies or increasing it by 1 And so you see here, this is what it stands for. And so we are incrementing the number of cookies by 1. And so we are saying this is going to occur 5 times because it's going to start at 0, increase to 1, increase to 2, increase to 3, increase to 4, and then when it increases to 5, this will not happen. So it will only occur 5 times, and then the 6th time, the actual statement in here will not occur. So it'll only occur 5 times. So you'll only eat 5 cookies. Now we are going to do a demonstration of block coding. And the task we're going to complete is we are going to create a program to draw a square of different inputted sizes. So I want you all to click on this link and we will begin. So once you have clicked on that link, you will come to a website that will look like this. We will be using Snap by Berkeley. The University of Berkeley produced this. And once you get here, let's go through some of these different parts. So in this corner, this is where we have our project information, so we can create a new project. We can save our projects, we can import a past project, things like that. We also can log into a certain account we have. So if you want an account, you can create one. We also have settings, which is where you can alter maybe the language you're going to see everything in. So if you want it in, say, Spanish, feel free to change that now. We also can change the size of this window from small to large. We can also open it to make it big. And then we have these controls up here, which are starting, pausing, and stopping buttons. Over here is where our actual blocks of code are. So our blocks of code actually represent code, but they are formatted to make it easier on us to use. And so you can just drag pieces out, and anytime there is this white box or just a faded box, you can actually click on it and add different values. If you ever don't want a value, just drag it out, or you can right click and click delete. Now we have a lot of different blocks we can choose from. We have ones that control, we have operators, which are more of your math functions, we have pens, all different ones, and we'll explore some of these in a bit. Over here we have our scripts, and when you're in the scripts tab, that is where you're going to put the code you will be using. Under costumes, you can see this little cursor or icon or picture that will be actually the thing moving in our function, and we can actually change that. If you click on this paint one, you can draw a little picture. If you say your favorite animal is a turtle, you could draw a turtle. I'm just going to draw a simple arrow to make it easier to see where we're going. And once you click OK, you can see that is now on this screen. So back to our scripts. Now we're going to write it. So our task is to make a square of a different inputted size. And so we want something that will control when this program actually starts. So I'm going to choose when the space key is pressed. You can also choose when the flag is clicked, and then you would just click the green button up here. I'm just going to say when the space button is clicked. Now we need to move this. And if you think about a square, it has those 4 sides. So you have, let's do it this way. So you have the upper side, then you have this side, down here, and up. And each one has a 90-degree angle between these sides. And so you might have heard that as a right angle in a math class. And so we want this to occur 4 times. You may remember I mentioned a for loop, which allows us to repeat an action 4 times. Because basically we want the same thing to happen each time. We want it to move a certain distance, we want it to turn that 90-degree angle, and then we want it to repeat. So if you select this for loop, we're saying for I, and we want it to occur not 10 times, but 4 times. Now we go under motion for our controls that will actually move this icon. So we want it to move 10 steps, and then we want it to turn those 90-degree angles. And so I'm going to click the spacebar, and we see it moved really quickly. And so this button actually up here is called visible stepping, and we can walk through our code more easily. This is often called debugging when you're actually typing out programs, but this is the tool we're going to use in order to see what's happening. And so when I click the spacebar, it moves 10 steps, it turns, it moves 10 steps, it turns, moves 10 steps, turns, and moves up. And then we're right back at the start. Now, say you want to be able to see this actual square we created. This is where we go to pen. You can think of this icon almost like a pencil hovering above paper. And if we want it to actually draw, we need to say that that pen's going to go down, and then we're going to draw. So under pen, we're going to select pen down. And let's make it actually a little bigger so it's easier to see what's happening. So it's going 100 steps, going down, and yay, that produced our square. But as the task specified, we want it to be able to produce different inputted sizes. So under sensing are things where we can give it a certain value, or the program will basically have some value inputted into it, and then it will decide what to happen. So we can ask, and we're going to edit this to say, what size square do you want? And then it's going to wait for an answer. Now our answer is going to be a variable. It's going to hold that value that we insert. And so instead of moving it 100 steps, we want it to move what our answer is. Now let's do this. So the screen pops up, and we need to input a certain value. So let's say 150. Now it moves, it goes down, and it creates this square for that size we put in. But as you can see here, we now have two squares. We don't want both these squares present. We want just the square we input. So we want to clear what's on our page first. So let's try this again. Now let's say 200. Now it's going to go. But uh-oh, now we can't see all of our square that we created. And so we need to be able to maybe move this up here. Now you can either just drag that there, but if you want the actual code to have it start there, we can say go to X, Y, and think of this as an XY plane. And so you have your X-axis here. You may have heard these terms in math. And you have your Y-axis here. So Y is vertical, X is horizontal. And on this side, we have all our positive X coordinates. And then when it's less than the Y-axis, we have all our less than 0 coordinates. Same with Y, but in the opposite fashion. So greater than 0, less than 0. And so over here, we're going to have our negative X value and then a positive Y value. And so let's just set this to negative, let's say negative 200. And let's stop stepping right now. So negative 200. And then let's say positive 150. So click space. Let's restart this. Okay, now you see it moved here, and then we say 200. And we don't want this line for that time when it moves up to this corner. So let's say our pen's going to be up before it moves there. And so now when we click it, and we do this bigger square, it's all in the page, and it can be seen by everyone. So as you can see, we can input a size, and it will produce this square. I would encourage you to keep playing around with this. Another task you could complete is try making a snowflake or another shape. Say, create a pentagon or create a circle. just try messing around and creating different shapes and just have fun with it. So see you next time. Bye.